Imagine winning the most critical battle of your life. The civil war is over, the coup is crushed, but instead of a victory parade, your soldiers are sneaking back into the city, heads down, ashamed. Why? Because the king isn't celebrating, he's wailing.
It's one of the most jarring shifts in the entire narrative of David. We are looking at 2 Samuel chapters 19 through 21. And you're right, the atmosphere is toxic. David is drowning in grief for his son Absalom, crying, my son," over and over. It's heartbreaking, but politically, it's a disaster.
Exactly. It sends a message to the troops that their lives don't matter. Only Absalom mattered. And this is where Joab steps in. And I have to say, Joab is terrifying here. He walks right into the king's chambers and essentially threatens him, doesn't he?
He does. Joab is the ultimate pragmatist. He tells David, bluntly, you love those who hate you and hate those who love you. He warns David that if he doesn't go out and thank the troops, he'll be alone by morning. It's harsh, but Joab saves the monarchy that day. David pulls himself together, sits at the gate, and the government starts to function again. But the instability is palpable.
It feels like the kingdom is held together by duct tape at this point. Even the journey back across the Jordan River is messy. You have tribes arguing over who loves the king more, and then you have these personal encounters. Shimei, the guy who cursed David earlier, is suddenly groveling in the dirt.
And David spares him. It's fascinating. David is trying to heal the nation through mercy. He spares Shimei. He tries to make things right with Mephibosheth, though that's a complicated situation with the servant Ziba. But notice the contrast. David is trying to be diplomatic, but the tribal tensions are boiling over. The men of Israel and the men of Judah are literally shouting at each other about who has more claim to the king.
Which leads directly into the next crisis in chapter 20, the rebellion of Sheba. It seems like David just can't catch a break. One rebel son dies, and immediately a new troublemaker blows a trumpet and says, we have no portion in David.
Every man to his tents. It's a call to secession, and here is where we see the dark underbelly of David's administration. David actually promotes Amasa, Absalom's former general, to replace Joab. He wants to unify the country. But Joab? Joab isn't going to let that happen.
This scene with Amasa is gruesome. It's straight out of a mob movie. Joab meets Amasa, acts like he's going to greet him with a kiss, and then
guts him with one stroke. It's cold-blooded murder. Joab leaves Amasa dying in the middle of the road and just keeps marching to crush the rebellion. It shows you that while David is the anointed king, Joab is the one holding the sword. And eventually, they corner the rebel Sheba in a city called Abel.
I love the resolution here. It's not a battle, it's a negotiation. A wise woman from the city calls out to Joab.
She's brilliant. She basically says, why destroy a whole city for one guy? She convinces the townspeople to cut off Sheba's head and throw it over the wall to Joab. Problem solved, army goes home. It's efficient, but it's so violent. The chaos of men is resolved by the wisdom of a woman, but the cost is always blood.
Speaking of blood, chapter 21 takes a strange, supernatural turn. There's a famine, and it's not weather, it's spiritual debt.
Right. We find out that Saul, the previous king, had slaughtered the Gibeonites, breaking an ancient treaty. The famine is the consequence. David asks the Gibeonites what they want for justice. They don't want money. They want 7 of Saul's descendants to be executed.
And David agrees? That seems incredibly harsh, even for this time period.
He does. He hands over 2 sons of Rizpah and 5 sons of Merab. They are executed. But there is a haunting image here that we cannot skip. Rizpah. She stays with the bodies.
This part gave me chills. She spreads sackcloth on a rock and guards the bodies from birds and wild beasts for months.
Day and night. From the beginning of the harvest until the rains came. It's a display of maternal grief that rivals David's grief for Absalom. When David hears about what she did, he is moved. He finally retrieves the bones of Saul and Jonathan and gives everyone a proper burial. It's like Rizpah's vigil forced the king to bring closure to the past. Only then did the famine end.
It feels like we are watching the slow closing of an era. The chapter ends with battles against the Philistines. But something is different. David isn't the young giant slayer anymore.
No, he's not. There's a moment where a giant targets David. David grows faint. He's exhausted. He's almost killed, but Abishai saves him. And then his men make a new law. You shall no longer go out with us to battle, lest you quench the lamp of Israel.
That is such a heavy line. Quench the lamp. They are acknowledging that he is the symbol of the nation, but he is physically fading.
Exactly. The warrior king can no longer fight. He has survived treason, the death of his sons, famine, and political upheaval, but he cannot defeat time. The text leaves us with these lists of giants being killed by David's men, not David. The torch is passing.
It really makes you think about the cost of leadership. We started with a king crying in victory, and we end with a king too old to hold his sword.
It's the tragedy of power. You might secure the throne, but you lose almost everything else in the process.
A powerful place to stop. Thanks for walking through this intense section of history with us.
Always a pleasure. God bless.